Hey guys, Chris here. Just the tips, no fluff. Today we're going to be replacing the Diff bushings on the '06 Miata. Here we go. So the Diff bushings are located there, and one on the other side. So we have to remove, actually what we're going to do is lower the subframe. So they are 6 bolts holding up the subframe, that one and that one on both sides. So the whole subframe is going to lower down as much as I can get it. From what I've read, you have to loosen these bolts until just one of the threads is holding it, as well as loosen or remove the diff bushing bolts. So I got to remove the bolt out of there. Then the whole thing this will slide down just enough to where you can reach into here and get the 4 bolts off of the diff bushing mount. Let's get started. All right, so I've lubricated all 6 points of the subframe with some PB Blaster. We're also going to remove these braces. And then I found that the center bolt looks like it has the most threads on it, so that's the one I'm going to use to like I'll remove these, but I'm going to support the diff cradle or this subframe with those center bolts. I've also put some PB Blaster on those top bolts, as well as the actual diff mounting bolts, which are there. A couple of bonus tips for you. I have a regular ratcheting wrench, a flexible head ratcheting wrench, and a regular wrench. What I try to do is always use a regular box end to break these bolts, nuts loose, then come in with the ratcheting wrench, because I in the past have used a ratcheting wrench to break bolts that were tight and ruin these things, and they're not cheap. You guys know that. Tip number 2 is when I'm working under the lift, take a regular baseball cap, and then on Amazon or wherever you choose, there's these plastic inserts that you can put into a baseball cap, and there's a little bit of padding in there, and it makes for a nice bump cap for when you hit your head on things. It doesn't hurt at all compared to when you hit the yellow posts and it gashes your head. I mean, I wouldn't know from experience or anything, but you know. I used a 3/8 breaker bar to get that bolt started. It's a 17 millimeter, and I'm on the diff bushing bolts themselves. I'm going to finish them off with a ratchet, I believe. Making short work of this with one of these thin flex head long handled ratchets. Never seen one of these thin flex head ratchets. These things work great. This one it's Harbor Freight special. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to back it off completely and replace it with 2 complete turns. And I'm going to do that with all 6 of them. And we'll see how it goes. I have to break out the big guns on this one. All right, so I've loosened all 6 bolts enough to where there's only a few threads holding on. Then I used the center bolts to lower it down until it hit on the bolts that I had loosened. Lowered the jack here down, and now the diff has lowered itself, so I have room now to get up above here into the diff bolts, which is really hard to see. All right, now that I'm in the deep of this, it probably would have been easier just to drop the muffler and let the mid pipe hang down. I'm having trouble getting to the bolts from here because of this heat shield, and then I'm not able to put a cheater pipe on my wrench because of the muffler. So I'm now going to try this open end with this special open end cheater bar. All right, finally got all four nuts off of the diff mount. I ended up having to use a 1/2-inch breaker bar, 17 millimeter shallow socket, and my my cheater extension thing. That was not easy. So, but like I said, I think it would have been easier if I would have ended up just dropping the muffler and, you know, letting the mid pipe hang down a little bit. So now I'm gonna get all 4 bolts off and we'll go from there. Quattro O. All right, all 4 nuts are off of the mount. Now I have to slide the mount up and out somehow. Couldn't see that. I'm lowering the diff all the way. It's just now the PPF is touching the cross brace. Low tension on it. I have an idea. Another little tip. If you have one of these, or if you don't have one of these flexi ratchets from Harbor Freight, grab you one. They are awesome. Crap. All right, got it out. So here's some tips on how I got it out. So you basically just have to work this thing up, down, over, side to side, just move it around till you can get it out on the passenger side. I lowered the subframe and the diff. I even had to remove the 2 back bolts out of this cross brace so the PPF could come a little bit lower. Currently going to raise that up so there's no tension on anything. But to get it out, the last part, so with everything lowered, I got it out till it hit on the axle. This part was hitting on the axle and it couldn't get around it. So I took the center subframe bolt, tightened it up to the car. That opened up the space between the axle and the frame right here, and I was able to get it out by the hardest. But it's doable. All right, so yeah, I would say it was time. It was time. Now we got to get these bushings out. All right, since tapping them out ain't gonna work, and I don't know of a way to use a press on these because of the way it's made. So from what I read, just take a chisel, take out the rest of the plastic, and then cut out the metal race, make a cut in the race, and then, ow, that hurt, and then just push the race out once it's been cut, because that relieves some of the tension. There's one. There's not a lot holding these things on. I'm using an old wood chisel to do this with. You could probably use a screwdriver, a knife. I know a lot of people put them out in the yard or driveway and just burn them. But now I'm going to take, probably going to try a Sawzall. I saw a lot of people doing that, Sawzall, and just cut a relief in it. Might cut one or two, not sure yet. Let's see. All right, Sawzall with a belly. Uno. Dos. All right, so now they got them both out. Here's my final tips. Used a wood chisel to cut the rubber out. Then use the Sawzall to cut the face of it, or face of it. Bend those up, cut in through here, turn it around, cut from the back side, tap this up, and as you tap you can kind of start to see the line form in the crack. Cut a little bit more so you're not cutting into the aluminum, or as little as possible, and then once it goes through you'll be able to tap with a small chisel like this and kind of just tap it in to where it bends in, and once the relief happens, then you'll feel it start to move. Then you can use a regular chisel and just punch it out alternating sides. All right, we got the new bushings in this morning. I'm gonna put them in today. I went with white line. These are supposed to be 70 durometer, so not too stiff, but way stiffer than stock. And I'm gonna install these And here it doesn't look like they're going to be too difficult. Just tap them in all around, make sure it seats all the way around. Put in the center part, and it's ready to go back in the car. Came with some grease. We're going to grease up all the faces and the bolt hole. So now I've got it rotated into place. I'm going to put the grease on and then snap it in. All right, mount is back on. Get a couple nuts on there, and then we'll try to put the bolts back in. All right, I got all 4 bolts on there, and now I'm going to go through them and tighten them. Pretty sure the torque spec on these is 1 forehead vane, so that's what I'm going to give them. I think I read the official torque spec of these as tight AF. I'm going to tighten them. If you're watching this in England, I'm giving them all the Newton meters. All right, now we're going to use the jack to lift up the diff and align the bolt holes. Note to self, I probably should have put these bolts in before tightening the 4 top bolts to spec. Now I'm going to have a hard time lining up these bolts forward and backwards. All right, so the point that I'm at now is the brace is in. I got the bolts through the inside of the brackets into the bushings, but I'm having trouble lining the bolt up now to hit the welded nut on the outside of the bracket. So what I'm going to try to do is lift the whole subframe back up, and then all I got to do is worry about moving the actual diff up and down, side to side, and I can do that with a pry bar. But right now I'm fighting the subframe as well. All right, so everything's tightened back up. I don't show that kind of thing because you know how to tighten up a bolt. So here in a nutshell, when you lower the subframe, you have to play with lowering the diff at certain points and raising the subframe to get the bracket out. It's easier to get the top bolts loose when everything is down, but to get the bracket out, it's easier if you lower the diff but raise the subframe. And then so one mistake I made was I tightened up my top bolts before putting the bolts through the actual diff bushings. And so what I would do is just put all the nuts into place, put in the actual bolts that go into the mounts, and start everything, then tighten the top, then tighten the bushings. And other than that, we're gonna go take it for a spin. If you like this video, if it helped you out, please like, subscribe, all that crap. I don't care. I'm not in this for the money. It's just I couldn't find a video, so I figured I'd make one. If you made it this far, you know that I try not to tell you about my day. I don't talk about all kind of other crap. It's just the tips, no fluff. Well, this is actually fluff here, but it's only because it's at the end. So if you made it this far, thanks. Have a great one.